the room was this open. So we welcome you all in, and we look forward to a good meeting. I am going to do a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem.
Present.
Mrs. Hightower. Present. Mrs. Hoffman.
Present.
Mr. Holston.
Present.
Mr. Outling.
Present.
Mrs. Thurm.
Present.
And Dr. Wells.
Present.
So, and obviously I am here. Mrs. Abuzawader is not here today. She is in the hospital, and that we wish her a very best speedy recovery. And as we do our moment of silence, if we would keep her and her family in our prayers. And we will start with the moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. Holston, would you like to lead us in the prayer?
Yes.
In the pledge.
Kelly, you can pray too.
Let's do it.
You can come vote. You can pray too.
To the flag of the United States of America. The Republic of the United States, indivisible, strong.
Welcome to the Katie Dorset Council Chamber. The public forum and agenda item speakers have two options to register to speak before council. Residents may register via the JOT form on the city's website by 5 p.m. the day prior to a council meeting, or residents may sign up to speak by 6 o'clock the day of a meeting by using the QMinder kiosk just outside the chamber door. Please see our Community Relations Manager, Gary Canapino, at the courier desk for assistance. As you can see, that part of this meeting will be by Zoom to comply with requirements by the state in regards to Zoom meetings and to provide an optimal experience for the public. Council will verbalize motions, and all votes will be conducted by roll call vote and by using the electronic voting software. Each member of council must vote unless there is a direct conflict. We do allow for speakers, and we welcome them, to address council at the public forum meetings. Council respects the right for the public to speak about matters of concern that can be addressed by council. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. Comments that deem intended to incite unlawful behavior will be deemed out of order. Zoom participants are required to mute their microphone until called upon to speak. The city of Greensboro is committed to promoting an environment that is free of discrimination, bias, and bullying. Thus, harassment, words, jokes, actions, or comments based on an individual's sex, sexual orientation, race, ethnic background, age, religion, physical condition, or other legally protected characteristic will not be tolerated. In order for comments to be considered, they should be submitted online through the city's website, www.greensboro-nc.gov. We do have a consent agenda for items G1 through G8, which are a grouping of agenda items that are voted on with one single vote to expedite what are believed to be routine and non-controversial items. Any council member may withdraw an item from the consent agenda due to a conflict of interest or for the purpose of voting no. The items removed from the consent agenda for discussion will be placed on the March 15th City Council business agenda. This meeting does include closed captioning. Depending on the length of tonight's meeting, we may take a short recess around 7:30. This is the time for our ceremonial and presentation items. Item E1 is a resolution to honor the memory of the late Mark Friedman. This was originally brought for us from Mary Kay Abuzawader, and I'm going to ask Hugh to read it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The resolution to honor the memory of the late Mark Friedman. Whereas on November 3rd, 2020, the Greensboro community lost one of its outstanding leaders with the passing of the late Mark Friedman. Whereas Mr. Friedman was born on October 5th, 1957, and raised in Akron, Ohio, aspired to be a chef, and graduated from the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. Whereas Mr. Friedman lived in Greensboro, North Carolina for over 40 years, owned 3 restaurants, including one which bore his name of Mark's Restaurant, received a rare 5-star rating from former News and Record food critic John Batchelor, and accumulated many local, regional, and national awards. Whereas as an avid volunteer, donating his time and talents for over 35 years to the annual Community Tables Thanksgiving Day Feast, and helped carve turkeys in preparation for thousands of meals for those in need. Whereas Mr. Friedman was known for his vigor, love of life, family and friends, and his enjoyment of great food, great bourbon, cigars, and a weekly round of golf. Whereas the Mark Angel Foundation was created to honor Mr. Friedman, a nonprofit whose mission is to foster a safe and healthy community where fundraisers support local community safety organizations and scholarships are distributed in Mr. Friedman's enduring memory and love of the culinary arts. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Greensboro that the City Council wishes to express its condolences and offer its sincere appreciation and gratitude for the many years of dedicated public service of the late Mark Friedman. His legacy will be remembered by the outstanding contributions he made. That a copy of this resolution shall be delivered to the family of the late Mark Friedman as a symbol of the gratitude of the people of Greensboro for his devoted support and contributions to the community. Adopted this first day of March, 2022.
Move the items.
So moved by Mrs. Thurm,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Holston. Council, please vote. And that passes 8-0. I know that Mr. Holston would like to give copies to some of the people in attendance. I believe that Robin Friedman is on the Zoom.
Yes, ma'am. There's several members of the family on Zoom.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
There are several members of the family on Zoom.
Okay. Can we key up Robin?
I'm here.
Bear with us 1 second, Robin. Can we get her camera up? There you go. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to make some comments?
Well, my brother Howard and I, as well as my aunt and uncle, and my brother-in-law Rick, and my other family members who are Zooming in, just want to tell the community, and especially the City Council, and Mary Kay, who's in our thoughts, thank you so much for acknowledging my brother's legacy and the life that he lived in Greensboro. He loved the community. That's why he spent over 40 years working and living in Greensboro. And my heartfelt thank you. And thank you for keeping his name very visible as we still wait for that phone call that they will find his killer. Thank you so much. And thank you for the acknowledgement from the bottom of our hearts. We so appreciate it.
And Robin, I want to thank you, and I know the council wants to thank you for the dedication that you've had to follow your brother's case through and to make sure that the people of Greensboro knew about him and started the Marks Foundation. So thank you so much for that, because not only does that benefit Mark and your family, it is benefiting other people in the city of Greensboro as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. The community has really rallied, as you can see in the audience where you are. Some of the most lovely people I've had the opportunity to meet since my brother's death. And I'm honored to be part of the Mark Angel Foundation. And I'm so honored to be associated with all those lovely people in the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any other family members on Zoom who would like to speak? If not, we do have some people here in chambers, and I think I think that Hugh was Doug
Yeah.
was was voluntold.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, no disrespect, but I have to put this hat on because you never saw Mark without his hat. And this is the hat that he wore basically. So I wear that in honor of our friend. Just on behalf of our foundation, that was started for reasons which we didn't want to start, but we've all grown very passionate about what's happening in the city as a group of people that care. We work with Mothers Standing Against Gun Violence, and we do this all to honor Mark. Like we said, our mission is to create a safer, happier place to live in Greensboro. And so we're going to continue to do the good work of this organization and work with the city council. And just, we cannot thank you enough for this honor for him. It is well deserved. He had a lot of chances to leave this city and he wouldn't because he loved it with his whole heart. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to make some comments? Hugh, would you like to
Yeah.
give them? You did, you handed
I've
it
already
out.
given it to
Okay.
them. Is there
We're good.
other comments? I'll simply say that Mark was a good friend of mine. We played golf often at the Cardinal. Notice in the resolution, he talked about a good bourbon, and we enjoyed a good bourbon. We go over to the restaurant and sit on the back patio and talk. And also, if you know Mark, Mark and I didn't always agree on everything, but we were agreeable. And he was a good friend, and I'll miss him. And I'll put in a plug again for the Angel Foundation and also for Crime Stoppers, because we need to find the person who did this.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Now we will move on to item number E2, which is a resolution in support of the 11th anniversary of the Wyland National Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation, which is April 1st through 30th, 2022. Whereas the Wyland Foundation, established in 1933 by renowned environmental artist Robert Wyland, inspires people to recognize the importance of clean and healthy water. Whereas the Wyland Foundation represents the Wyland National Mayor's Challenge with support from Toyota, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, WaterSense, the Toro Company, National League of Cities, Hobby, and Patel. Whereas the Wyland National Mayor's Challenge, the Challenge for Water Conservation, brings people and communities together for a fun, educational, water-wise competition. Whereas the challenge invites cities to engage in efforts that become better environmental stewards. Whereas the National Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation is a nonprofit challenge to residents to encourage pollution reduction and smart water use, encourage residents to register their participation in Greensboro's challenge online by making pledges to decrease their water use and to reduce pollution for that period of 1 year, thereby assisting their cities to apply for the state and federal water conservation strategies and to target mandated reductions. Whereas the city of Greensboro continues to explore ways to manage residential consumption of water and power and to inspire its residents to care for our natural resources. Whereas fresh water is vital to sustained life, experts predict that by the year 2030, the global demand for water will exceed the supply by 40%. And climate change and droughts have already led to reduced water supplies in the United States. Whereas from April 1st through the 30th, 2022, the city of Greensboro wishes to encourage its residents and neighboring communities to take the Wyland Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation to reduce impacts on the environment, to see an immediate savings in their water, trash, and electricity bills. And residents will be provided with tools to take specific measurable actions throughout the year to improve the sustainable use of natural resources. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Greensboro, that the City Council agrees and supports the Wyland Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation. The program will be implemented from April 1st to April 30th, that through a series of communication and outreach strategies, residents will be encouraged to take the conservation challenge, that the City Council hereby recognizes the month of April 2022 as Wyland Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation in the city of Greensboro.
Move the item.
Moved by Mrs. Johnson, seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote. And that passes 8-0. Mr. City Manager, is there anybody here from city staff who wants this, or will we forward this to Water Resources? Okay, we'll forward it on. We now go into the public comment portion of our meeting. There have been no written comments received for this March 1st, 2022 council meeting. We do have 6 speakers who are pre-registered for the public forum portion of the meeting. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. We do have 1 person on Zoom, so I thought we would start with Lewis Pitts. Mr.
Greetings.
Pitts,
My connected mayor.
yes, we see you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lewis Pitts. As I've done several times, I remind each of you that it's campaign season. So I have a question or a point that I'd like to make, but I'd first like to point out 3 points that were made in the deposition of Chief James approximately 1 year ago in the Marcus Smith case. First, he acknowledged that he had been a plaintiff along with other African-American officers alleging that the then city chief in 2010 and the Special Intelligence Division of the police department had discriminated against officers. So another point that he made was, and he acknowledged on questioning from Flint Taylor, that the current police department, for which he's the chief, engages in monitoring social media. Monitoring social media. And when asked if they monitored groups that were seeking justice for Marcus Smith, including Democracy Greensboro, he was instructed by his lawyer not to answer. So that's not a complaint about the chief not answering. It does raise the question, is there a publicly vetted criteria by which the police department decides what social media to monitor? And we're using the word monitor, which really we're talking about spying. So I would like each of you to have a position that hopefully you could share tonight, but at least share on the stump about whether or not there is a criteria by which you select who is going to be monitored, because certainly there are not unlimited resources to try to monitor everybody's Facebook and Twitter, et cetera. What's the criteria? Does only the chief decide? Does only the assistant chief decide? Can the sergeant in the Criminal Intelligence Division, and we know our nation has a serious problem with intelligence squads being really acting as political police. So that's the point and the concern that I and others have. And I would ask if any of you are willing to speak on this point now, or at least pledge to have a position one way or the other, just so that we can know and your position can be transparent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have another speaker on Greensboro PD, and that is Hester Petty.
Good evening. My name is Hester Petty. I live at 3402 Canterbury Street here in Greensboro. It took 3 years, 5 months, and 24 days for the city to finally agree to compensate the Smith family for the police killing of Marcus Smith. And yet now we have another police killing of an unarmed man in Greensboro. Joseph Thomas Lee Lopez. According to the Greensboro Police Department, on November 19th last year, while confronting the subject, an officer discharged their weapon, striking the subject in the usual kind of no information kind of press releases they put out over there. News reports in the next 2 days added a few details, but it appears that no information has been forthcoming from the police since then, and only Triad City Beat has done any recent follow-up. That said, the information that is available is troubling. This is a copy of the Greensboro Police Department public incident report. You can see it's 1 page, very little information on it. But what's particularly interesting about this is where it says crime incident. And it says criminal homicide, murder. This is what the police report says about a police killing. Don't you find that somewhat interesting? I know I do. I want you to just let that sink in for a minute, but because now I'm going to turn over to the, this is the North Carolina Medical Examiner's investigative report that was signed on December the 10th of last year. And according to this report, the narrative they received said that after the police, and it's more information. I mean, I've been trying to get information on this now since it happened. After the police arrived on the scene, they heard movement inside a storage building. Officers gave numerous commands to exit the storage building, but Joseph Lopez did not comply. He was seen through the doorway, and soon after, one of the officers shot him. He immediately became unresponsive and fell to the floor. The cause of death, penetrating gunshot wound of head and neck. He got a headshot while he was standing in a storage unit, apparently unarmed. It's been a couple of months now since the Emmys report came out and became public, and still there is no update from the Greensboro Police Department. Now, I think I know how he died at this point. I just don't know why. An unarmed man, obviously they were there to arrest him, was shot in the head. I don't know if any of you have looked into this. I asked you last December to look into this, to watch the video, to look at the reports.
Thank you.
Happened in my neighborhood, 2 blocks from my house.
Reverend Nelson Johnson, is he in the? Let's see. Lisa McMillan. Oh, okay.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak here. I'm Lisa McMillan, and I'm a lifelong resident of Greensboro. I come to employ you and to thank Councilperson Hightower for being a champion and a supreme supporter of our transit system. But I had 2 experiences in the last 3 months where I would like all of City Council to support our public transit and the major infrastructure that is needed for individuals like me and other people visiting here. Just today, I rode my bicycle from my house for 25 minutes as part of my therapy for my disability. I do have a physical disability. And once I got to a point where I couldn't go on, I stopped at a bus stop to catch the bus. And when the bus came, it only runs once an hour, it was Route 15. And when it came, the operator did not have masks. Now, I knew that they were supposed to have masks, but I was not given the opportunity to ride because I didn't have it and she didn't have it. The problem is that I had to get off the bus and I had to wait for 45 minutes standing. So as of this moment, I'm not going to be able to walk for a couple of days. This was a challenge to get here, but it was important so that you guys could have an opportunity to put a face to a crisis because I could not get the service. I know that you will be awarding a transit operation this evening, but in that, I'm not sure of all the intricacies of budgets and things, but to have benches and seats at the least at these stops is major because I experienced a similar issue back in November, trying to get from my house to my daughter's school because she just happened to have had to stay at school a little longer and she had my transportation. And I had to stand at a stop in the drizzling rain just to catch a bus And it took about an hour and 15 minutes from my house to get there. But because of my physical disability, my condition was exacerbated because I had nowhere to sit and it was not covered. And I was in my bed for almost 2 weeks just because of that lack of infrastructure. Now, I know several of you, and I try to help other people and I try to do things to help myself. But as a resident here in Greensboro, if we want people to be contributors, we at the minimum need to provide certain standards. I happen to have a physical limitation, but I had the option. It did not deter me from getting to work or to care for my child, but I could not utilize the system that is in place to provide transportation for me because an operator didn't have what they needed, but I could not sit down. And that's just a minimum that should have been provided for a citizen to catch the bus. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can I ask you, Ms. McMillan?
Yes, ma'am.
You said when you got ready to get on the bus, the driver didn't have a mask on?
No, the driver had a mask on,
Okay.
and she didn't have the packets that I do know that they provide
Okay.
for when passengers get on,
that
to make sure
passenger
people have
needed
them.
a mask.
Right, yes, ma'am.
We'll look into that because it is a federal mandate that
Right.
everybody riding transit has
Right.
to have a mask on, and I apologize for that.
No, thank
for
you.
That not being the service, but I think, well, I'll say what I need to say later, but I- just trust me. But I apologize for that happening.
Thank you. Let's just at least get some benches, y'all.
And, well, we will.
Yeah,
We
I know.
understand the need for shelters and benches. A lot of times our problems are because it's private property and some property owners will not allow us access. And we understand the urgent need and we have to look at our stops, maybe, and base our stops on where we can provide that service, because I agree. At least you need some shelter out of the weather. So I certainly agree. And we know, we've been working on that for quite a while, as you know.
Right.
But it's good to always bring it forth. So thank you for your advocacy.
Thank y'all.
Yes, ma'am.
Reverend Johnson?
Mayor and council members, it's been a while since I've been here. I learned yesterday of the plea of the sanitation workers that they be paid adequately. That would include the amount of time that they have been on the job. As I was outside at the rally, one of the workers shared with me that he had been on the job for 15 years. And someone came in and got $6,000 to $7,000 a year more than he did. So I want to say time matters, that they bring the experience. They have endured the long days. People talked about their roots and how they have to work hard to make that work and to fill in for each other. So I want to strongly advocate. I just learned of this rally yesterday, but we stood with the workers several years ago when they were demanding the step process. And I want to commend the council for granting that. But actually, these men have families, they have children, they have people that depend on them, and they don't need to scrape and scrap the whole of their life and then end up with very little. So I want to strongly urge this council to sincerely consider, matter of fact, more than consider, make a decision to make the time served count. It works that way in most other places. If you've been there for a while and you've done good work, people acknowledge that by giving you a pay increase. What is it about this council that you don't want to do that? And actually, it is causing dispiritedness to take place among people who are working very hard. I wish I had more time to have listened to them today. I'm not altogether versed on the reasons why, but whatever they might be, doesn't seem to make sense to me. Why should someone be working for 15 years and have someone come in doing essentially the same work and getting paid so much more? This is not fair, it's unjust, and I want to say to this council that this is another opportunity for you to do the right thing, because it's always the right time to do the right thing. And if there ever were a time to actually bridge the gap between those who have and have not, this time is now. This nation, this country is in a terrible situation, and I think this council can model something that may have meaning beyond this city. Pay the workers who have worked a long time, they deserve it.
Thank you. Ramon Johnson?
Ramon Johnson, heavy equipment operator, Water Resources. Everybody, as Reverend spoke so elegantly about the step plan, I think it is past time. I think by not implementing not putting everybody in the step plan, so you guys had non-exempt workers, all non-exempt workers need to be in the step plan, not just the lower tier workers. See, me being in the supervisor status, but I'm not making that much money, but I'm still not in the step plan. And I think that I had told share with the brothers, I had somebody that had 23 years and was making the same amount of money as I am. I told him to come down to council. He was scared of retaliation from his supervisors about speaking up to that. So for me, I'm here. I've been here a bunch of times, and I want to be thankful for even implementing the step plan you guys did and who voted on it. I definitely appreciate that. But when you don't bring the guys up that's been doing the work for the longest, you cause friction in the workplace. So you have guys coming in, and then you have people doing favors, hiring people at a higher rate more than guys that's been doing the work. These guys are training the guys that are making more money than them. That's how bad it is now. Who's going to come down and address this? Who's going to watch the budget all the way till it gets to the worker? That's not responsible, you guys. It's not responsibility. You have to guarantee that employees are going to be treated right. The mistreatment has started already, and you're not going to you can't put a Band-Aid on it. You got to go all the way. You got to fix this thing all the way. You got to put some money into it. We've been fighting this for a long time. And like I said, I want to be thankful about the step plan. Also, I'd like to speak about going through the COVID phase. We have every other city in North Carolina has gave their workers something for COVID. We have got nothing from city council from COVID. No type of relief. How is that even possible? That's an embarrassment. We had 7 workers on my jobs in the hospital at the same time. One worker was forced to retire because he could never come back to work. This guy's 27 years old and can't work no more, and can't even file it with the city because they claim that it didn't even happen at work when they know it did. Who's gonna watch that? Who's gonna be there to protect that? It's embarrassing. I like that. This is a great city. Let's get that down. It's a great city because everybody makes it work, and you have workers in here that don't even make that much money and still do a great job, better than every other city in North Carolina. But we need somebody to recognize that.
Thank you. I do want to say that we have the step plan on our retreat agenda, March 23rd and 24th, so we will be talking about it at the retreat.
So, Madam Mayor, can I ask Mr. City Manager, though, have you met with these individuals?
Not since I started, but I do know that we've met with them twice, one in November and one in December. I know I have with me correspondence between our HR and Mr. Johnson with regards to the fact that we've committed to council that we were going to consider this pay inequity as part of the FY 22-23 budget.
Yeah,
And we're
'cause
going to do that. And as part of what Mayor just said, we will have more details for that. But I will be happy to meet with the group.
yeah, I really would
for-
like for you to.
Okay.
I mean, they have been fighting for quite a long time, and while we did implement the step plan, I wasn't aware that they weren't gonna have pay equity either. in
And
the
I hope
step
that I
plan.
just want to say, I'm sorry, not cut you off, Sharon.
No, but your time is up.
But one more thing, if you guys don't watch it all the way down till it gets to work, it's not gonna make it there. You can't give people a lump sum of money and think they're gonna do the right thing with it.
Right.
You gotta watch the people under you.
We got you.
Thank
you.
We got you.
Madam
We got
Mayor.
you.
Yes.
So if Mr. City Manager, if you could do that also, I think it's very important. Because our employees should feel like they're valuable. And a couple months ago, when we had snow and ice and all of that, everybody was up here talking about, oh, they did a great job clearing the street, did a great job, great job, great job. Well, great job doesn't buy bread. So we need to look at that to help them to be able to be at the level that they should be at, even at other cities across this state. And I think I asked for a pay study some time ago, and I don't think that's happened either as well. So I would appreciate if you could do that for them.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Holston?
Yes, Madam Mayor, are we going, at our council retreat on the 23rd, 24th, are we going to have a full and comprehensive review of where we've come from, and where we are, and where we're going when it comes to the step plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr.
Well,
City.
that's the plan.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. City Manager. Thank you.
It is on the second day of the retreat. I believe it's
Yes.
on the 24th.
Okay, thank you.
And, maybe you could also outline the COVID benefits that we had. I do know that our employees did get extra days off, and they got a 5% premium pay, and anything else that might have been included. Leroy Hairston?
Everybody doing? My name is Leroy Harrison. I've been with the city for going on 5 years. This gentleman right here, he will step up for a second. He was outside, he was saying some wonderful things. And I don't know how this works. This is my first time here. You guys are gonna be seeing me a lot from now on, but I want to share my time with this man because his name is not on the list. But what I have to say, I'm really speaking from the heart. I don't have any notes because it was kind of like last minute for me. But what he has right here in his hands is very valuable, and I want you guys to hear. But I just want to say, thank you, Reverend. Thank you, Ramon, for saying what you guys said. But mine is in regard to COVID relief. Just because I've had COVID twice, and both issues were because of the city. And the second time around, I had to jump through leaps and bounds to get a check, just a paycheck, a basic paycheck, regular, no extra hours on top of that. And now I'm on departmental leave, and I'm having to pay that back. How make that make sense to me? I'm a city worker. I'm working for the city, putting my life on the line, and I have to pay that back because I got COVID. I'm literally taking this home to my family, and I'm having to quarantine for my family, be away from my daughter for several hours, weeks at a time, because I come here to put my life on the line to make sure the city is able to flush.
If we could get a follow-up on what Mr. Hairston, is referring to. Obviously, you can follow up in a memo.
I'm sorry. Okay. I don't have, like I said, I don't have much. And I don't know how much time I have, so I just want to allow this man to step up and speak his piece.
Good evening, City Council. Appreciate y'all time for this. I just want to show y'all some research since the city's saying we need numbers. I work for solid waste. I've been here since 2004 to now.
Could you give your name?
Douglas Pickard.
Okay.
And I've seen a lot of changes going around the solid waste, and I've never been there in this department and seen so many openings. People trying to crawl and get out instead of crawling and getting in. We can't even get guys to get promoted to come up to the automated side. But what I want to show you is if an employee is out of work, this is one truck driver's route, right? And when he's out of work, that means each driver under this supervisor have to pick a color. And that's the color we go get. All right. Once we get that color, we gotta turn around and go get our own route. And that's why the call center is getting so many calls about we going through the neighborhood going too fast. Well, they got to understand something. We're short, we're understaffed, and we work like this all the time. All the time. Dodging cars, mailboxes, basketball goals, people walking. And they expect us to do this. And the thing is, we're not getting paid for it. We go to any other city and talk to these guys at solid waste. How many cans y'all dump a day? Oh, we dump 300 or 400 cans a day. We going home. Well, we dumping 900 to 1,200 a day. And that's pushing it. We got 2 road mechanics. They can't keep up with us. The shop can't keep up with us. So we get 2 or 3 trucks go down because we run them so hard. They can't fix them because they don't have the manpower in the shop, because the guys are quitting in the shop because they're not making money. So they said, well, we're gonna work here this hard and we can go somewhere else and work with the money. I mean, we share the same story. Well, if you don't like working, quit, find another job. Well, if I didn't have time invested, I'll find another job. But I'm at the door right now. And with CDLs, I mean, with Class B CDLs, you can go and get a job anywhere. But I choose to work at the city of Greensboro. I like working with my coworkers. I like working for the city. But the thing is, I don't understand why we can't get paid. Why we can't get the money. That don't make sense. We shouldn't have to go through this to try to get the money to pay the drivers. People that's making above $50,000 a year, they ain't got no complaints. The ones under $40,000 a year, we got a complaint. And it don't matter. We got guys that come to work tired because they have to leave work at the city and go to work part-time jobs. And then when they come back to work the next day, we can't get no work out of them because they're so tired. Having accidents, sleeping, they can't get it together. So, the supervisor, they want to push it because it's not their fault. It's the whole system itself. If you got a whole bunch of power in one area and you don't know how to use it and trying to be a leader, I ain't gonna follow you. Y'all can't follow each other. How you expect for your coworkers and your comrades to follow you and y'all can't get along and follow each other? Everybody have their own opinion about something. Everything is done different. I want to do it this way and do it that way.
Thank you.
But we need to fix that. Thank you.
Eric Robert.
Good evening. Before you start my clock, I'd like to congratulate Ms. Saul on the new job. We're gonna miss you. I'm here to talk to you tonight about transparency and the very fine line between legal and ethical. It seems that the current trend focuses on legal technicalities instead of the basic premise of what is right for the many instead of what is profitable for the few. The first topic I'd like to address is public record request. The law states that the city needs to respond within a reasonable amount of time. Well, I have a few requests out there regarding Matt Brown and the Coliseum, some of them since August of 2021. Even by city standards, 6 months on existing public record is definitely not reasonable. The second thing I'd like to talk to you about is the very, very stealth request for proposal regarding the management of the downtown business improvement district, which was initiated and awarded a year ago. The state mandates 3 things from you. The first one is to obtain input from stakeholders. And here, astonishingly, the city actually asked DGI, a competitor in this RFP, to request input from stakeholders. It's kind of like having Zimmerman and Matheny doing a survey on the benefit of having a grocery store in a food desert, or while trying to hijack that same parking lot. It's probably legal, but definitely not ethical. The second thing that the state mandates is that you use a bid process. And unlike the previous RFPs, which was managed by the planning department and widely publicized, this one was managed by the finance department and sent through the procurement website. Mind you, you have to be a registered user to be able to get those emails. That being said, I'm told that the finance department sent out 2,000 emails and received 3 responses. 2 were from people thanking you for the consideration, but this RFP had nothing to do with their core competencies. And there was one enthusiastic response, and of course, it was Zach Matheny of DGI. The last thing, finally, that the state mandates is a 2 weeks publication and advertisement of a public hearing. And here I'm glad that you decided to support the peacemaker, but I have to ask, how was the public hearing? Did anyone show up? The answer is yes. One person showed up, Mr. Matheny, ready to go, almost like he knew something no one else knew, like the fact that there was actually a public hearing. So that being said, some of you allowed and have taken part into too many deals outside of the public eye. And all I can tell you is that if the public can know about it, chances are you shouldn't be doing it. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Bill Marshburn?
Bill Marshburn, 4693 Long Valley Road. We live in a time of fluid situation. I've just pinned this. Be a little hard to read. The revelations of Moderna and Pfizer documents from court actions is even somewhat mentioned in mainstream media in the past week or so. Our so-called county health department will have to deal with that. The Ukraine, another tragic war in our times. My age, many of you up there. One ongoing for 8 years. However, to call it an invasion is not exactly proper. Putin outlined several weeks ago in great detail what Russia's intentions are. The same ones he had negotiated and were accepted with the deposed president in 2014. No NATO or nuclear weapons in the Ukraine. George Soros has publicly stated he is responsible for the overthrow of the democratically elected president and the installation of the present one. Russia is not going in for plunder to take resources, but to secure its safety. Maybe we could call it a police action, a term we should be familiar with. In effect, it is a civil war with Russia and Russian intervention. The governor of North Carolina has a long list of sanctions against Russia, all rather curious. No hammer and sickle emblems. Well, that's the flag of the defunct Soviet Union. The Russian flag is white, blue, and red. These are vertical, white, blue, and red stripes. Our flag is, of course, red, white, and blue. All sanctions will hurt all the world's people, prolonging the hostilities. The West is responsible for the troubles in Ukraine, the Crimea, since the 1990s Clinton bombing regime. Senators and representatives have even spoken out to Russia, threatening, among other things, a nuclear first strike. So Mr. Putin has now target coded US targets. We have had an agreement previously to mutually not target each other. This is equivalent to our military's staging, posturing right before DEFCON 1. Any questions? Any answers? Well, something to think about. Thank you, counsel.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Philip Marsh.
Excuse us 1 second. Guys, city staff has gone rogue. I think it has been a horrible mistake in your last retreat and 4 years ago when you let city staff lead. We've seen that city staff has almost ran this city into the ground. And so I would like to hear from Mr. Decker about Karen Kitzmiller taking over this project and doing a horrible job with it, and see what is the status of this and when can we deliver on this project for predominantly Black citizens that want art in their communities too. And Ms. Thurm has failed them. And so you want Black votes, but you can't do what Black people want you to do. So again, if we can get a follow-up from Mr. Decker and Ms. Thurm to this matter, so I can take this information back to the community.
If we could get an update, if we could get a memo by the end of the week, really on the status of all those projects. And also, I know that we did need to get NCDOT approvals. Have we started that process? Where are we? Maybe we can get the
For the record, for that.
And I'd like to know
NCDOT
why.
thing. I just want to say for the record, for that NCDOT thing, I had a liaison with NCDOT, Ms. Karen Kitzmiller, who is not a TEDx speaker on creative projects. I am, decided that she knew best. And that's why I've been told that this project has been horribly administrated. But again, to your point, excuse me for interjecting.
That's all right. I want to know why it's been this length of time as well when we get the report.
And I see that we've got a lot of summer 2022 projects on this list. And we've seen one January 2022 to see what the status of those are as well.
Thank you very much.
Louis Medina.
Hello, my name is Los Medina. I'm here to represent the Working Classes and Houseless Organizing Alliance. So the city finally settled with the Smith family after 3 years of struggle. I think we should take a moment as citizens of Greensboro to clarify for ourselves if we think that's justice. Obviously, it's not. All 8 officers still have their job. All the 8 officers who killed Marcus Smith still have their jobs, 7 of which have raises. The city council, every member still has their seats. None of them have admitted any wrongdoing, even though they spent their time sweeping it under the rug, except for, Michelle Kennedy, who is now making 6 figures, kicking people out of their homes, I think, right? That's her job. I want to kind of take a second to understand why we can't get justice, right? What would and then maybe from that we can clarify what would constitute justice. So here's a series of questions. What is a boss? A boss is someone who gets rich by taking credit of your work. What is a landlord? A landlord is someone who makes money sitting on his couch while you sit on your couch. What is a cop? You know what a cop is? A cop is someone who breaks strikes, brutalizes people, breaks up unions, kicks you out when you need to be evicted. And the question is then, what is a politician? A politician is someone who lies for all 3. We can't take this justice. In my opinion, y'all could have erected a 100-foot statue of Marcus Smith in the middle of the city, and it still wouldn't have been justice, right? We need a different type of justice. We see what their justice amounts to. We still got, 275 cases of hog tying that haven't been addressed. You think that's going to get swept under the rug? I don't think so. We need a different kind of justice, right? We need our kind of justice, a people's kind of justice, a racial justice, a housing justice, an economic justice, a working class justice. As you can see, that there was a union here today to ask for something of that justice. I don't think that's enough. But if I were you, I would concede to them. Because the truth is, none of the conditions that had Marcus Smith killed that night, the conditions that put him on the street in the first place, and the racial, psychological disposition of the police in our nation has been changed, period. And for there to be justice of any kind, those things would have to change a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Del Stone. If I've missed anybody, please let Gary know. Otherwise, she will be our last speaker.
Hey friends, I'm Del Stone. I'm a Greensboro resident. I'm also an organizer with the community organization WOA. And tonight I'm here in solidarity with city workers who spoke earlier. And I'm going to try to make this very clear. I'm here for one reason. Workers deserve fair pay. And with all due respect to everyone in this chamber, we're dealing with some serious incompetence here. 4 months ago, workers from the Departments of City Utilities and Water Resources were here and they were speaking and they're addressing the way that they are paid. Most of those workers who are here trying to speak ended up having to leave because the mayor let the chief of police grandstand for 2 hours and those workers have to work in the morning. So tonight, we are here again. We're here to address what was apparently very confusing to the council, the fact that the city implemented a pay plan which does not recognize years of service, time on the job. This is longevity pay and it matters. The Greensboro city workers did win a historic victory in eliminating merit-only raises and establishing a step pay plan in the first place, and we recognize that that is important. But at the same time, it was a minor reform. And what it showed was that workers do have power when they come together, and we want to exercise that power further. Council did vote for a step pay plan, meaning that they will make pay increases predictable instead of based on a boss's choice, but the pay plan is not retroactive, which is key. Workers who have been with the city for decades can still make the same as a new hire. Some workers in the city are making as little as $30,000 or a little above $30,000 a year. They can't even afford to live in this city, and I think that is unacceptable. We should pay workers what they deserve because they are the people who make this city run. I know city council was confused about the complaints that city workers brought forward in November and today. I'm going to try to lay it out simply. It's not really my thing, but I'm trying to lay it out simply. Everyone who has interest in this city running has interest in these workers being paid what they are worth. The excuses that you give for what you pay workers less than their worth are actually, they're frustrating, but they're kind of hilarious. I know there was one comment from one council member who said that this pay plan based off of actual time on the job instead of merit would encourage mediocrity. I had to take a deep breath when I heard that, because mediocrity does not seem to be something that city council is worried about. When we bring these concerns to city council and we actually bring forward the concerns that city workers do not get the pay that they deserve on the job, and we are met with confusion about the fact that council did not even understand the pay plan that they had voted for, we have to really question whose mediocrity is at issue here. Workers are serious, they're fed up, and so are we all. And you can pretend that you don't hear us, or you can act like you don't understand. But if that's the truth, that just brings me back to my final point. There's incompetence on display here. And if you continue to treat workers this way, the real concern is that you will not have workers for this city. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that that is our last speaker. Okay, we will move on to our consent agenda, items G1 through G8.
Move the item.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Holston,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Johnson. Council, please vote. And we do need to confirm that by voice vote as well. Mrs. Hoffman? Mrs. Hoffman? Okay, we'll come back. Mr. Holston?
There she is.
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
Yeah.
Mrs. Johnson? I'm a yes. Mr. Outling?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
Mrs. Hightower?
Ms. Hoffman, did I guess?
And Mrs.
I'm a yes.
And that passes 8-0. We will now move on to the business portion of our agenda. We will take items I1 and I2 together. Item I1 is a resolution approving bid and authorizing contract in the award in the amount of $4,200,500 with EcoFlow for household hazardous waste disposal. And item I.2 is an ordinance amending fiscal year 2021-22 general fund budget in the amount of $350,000.
Move the item.
On item that was a motion for I1.
Second.
And that was moved, I think, by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Mr. Holston. Council, please vote. We also need to move in second on the screen. Just to confirm, Mrs. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Holston,
Yes.
Dr. Wells.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Outling.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm.
Yes.
And Mrs. Hightower.
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Can we have a motion and a second on I.2? Moved by Dr. Wells,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Johnson. Council, please vote. Mrs. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Holston,
Yes.
Dr. Wells, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Outling,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm,
Yes.
and Mrs. Hightower.
Yes.
That passes 8-0. We'll now move to item I.3, which is a resolution authorizing award of transit services contract in the amount of $122,694,877 with RATP Dev USA Inc. And I did ask for a brief presentation so that people watching at home would understand what this is. And we did have a work session on it last week.
And after that, I move the item.
Okay.
And I'll second it.
All right, so it will be Hightower Johnson.
What you say, Danny?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. I'm Hannah Cockburn, the Director of Transportation, and I'll be happy to present this very brief overview of this contract for public transportation services. So last summer, Keolis North America, who is GTA's current provider, provided us notice that they would not be executing the first year extension on their 3-year contract. That contract ends on June the 30th. Staff then began working on a new RFP in conjunction with the city attorney's office, outside counsel, and our procurement services here inside the city to release that in October of 2021. In January, the city received 4 responsive proposals that you can see listed here on the slide. The RFP and the selection process followed FTA guidance for procurement to ensure both a full and open competition. FTA best practices informed every aspect of the RFP development and review process, some of which those are shown here on the slide. The committee completed individual reviews, virtual interviews with all the proposers, and reference checks between January 20th and February 16th of this year. I'd really like to thank our procurement services as well as our committee members that was made up of city staff, Transit Advisory Commission members, and outside transit agency representatives for their assistance in supporting this very important process. This RFP is being awarded on a best value approach, which considers both the technical proposal of services in addition to the cost of those services. The committee recommends award to RATP Dev for a 5-year contract totaling just over $122 million. If approved, staff will begin execution of both the startup contract and the service contract that includes relevant performance metrics as outlined in the request for proposals. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions that council might have.
Any questions for Mrs. Cockburn?
Move the item.
I believe that Sharon moved it and it was seconded by Mrs. Johnson. Did you say you had a comment or a question?
Well, I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. Do you want to vote on this first? Let me make the comment after all.
Well, your comment might change someone's mind. So,
I don't think it will.
okay.
But what I would like to say, first of all, thank you, Ms. Cockburn. Thank you to your staff. For the last 3 years, they have struggled. They have done a yeoman's job of trying to keep this transit system going and provide excellent service in spite of the many barriers and obstacles that they have faced. And I have heard from many riders who have been concerned about our system and that we did not care about the rider and how they got around. And that is just not true. However, it is because of many of the handicaps that we were encountering that didn't allow us to provide the service that we need. And with the change of the contract and the approval of this will make a difference. As I wanted to say earlier to the lady who came and spoke, that this should be a better approach. There should be masks on bus. There should be drivers that I think that would be more pleasant, more pleasing, because you're right. When you come to work, you want to get paid. You want to feel value, and there's good morale. And in the past 3 years, it's not been that way. And what you all and your staff have endured, I'm telling you, appreciate it more than you know. I'm the liaison. I attend all the GTAC meetings. I've heard from the public many times. And so I think this contract is necessary. I'm very hopeful that it will help us achieve this goal. I know that the city manager, who is big on transportation, we're looking forward to doing some creative things and having a partner in that regard, where you're right, it's a best value. It's not a lowest price. And we've never recovered from it being selected as a low price. We can't lowball everything. We have to put investment in our transit system. And I'm expecting this one this time around. I think the mistakes that we made before and that have been made, some of the stuff that happened previous, We caught those mistakes and they will not, I'm sure, not happen again. So thank you, Ms. Cochran, for seeing this process through. And thank you to Bruce and the staff. Only 7 staff members over there. People don't even realize that the GTA staff is very small, but they've done a great job. And I appreciate that as well. And to the selection committee and the transit people that participated in this process. Thank you. No more complaints, I pray.
Any other comments? Council, please vote. Mrs. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Holston?
Yes.
Dr. Wells? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Outling?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
Mrs. Hightower?
Yes.
I do want to say, I don't remember the exact amount. You know, we worry about making sure that people are paid a livable wage, and we heard from some city workers earlier. I believe the average wage for the bus operators was 47,000. It was in the high 40s.
28 something per hour.
Yes, it was. It was $28 and change per hour. I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the proposed
Yes.
wage, yes.
Mhm.
It is.
So that,
Plus benefits, Mayor, because all
Oh,
that's
yeah.
factored into that too. Because that's something that our previous employees just had bare minimum benefits. So I think it's important.
and that passes 8-0. I am going to move item I8 up with 4 and 5, but I'm going to read them together. Resolution establishing a mass housing displacement program and authorizing 200,000 fund services. Item I.5, ordinance to approve funding for mass housing displacement program in the amount of 200,000, and I.8, a resolution to authorize contract in the amount of 200,000 with Greensboro Housing Coalition for mass housing displacement. And I do want
I
to,
moved this. This was something I'm very, and I know most of us are, very concerned about, given what we've had to deal with. It may not happen every year. It may not happen every 2 or 3 years, but when it happens, it's devastating. And so we need something in place so that we can give some positive response and take care of our citizens.
and I do want to say it has to be for low and moderate income residents. Mr. Holston, I think you,
It's a quick question. Mayor Pro Tem, which item are you moving? Are you moving all 3 or just?
no,
one?
just 4. We
4,
do
okay.
one at a time. I know we have to come back for you on 8. So we have a motion by Mrs. Johnson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Holston. Council, please vote. Mrs. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Holston?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Absolutely.
Yes, Mr. Outling?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hightower?
Yes.
And that passes 8-0. Now I need a motion for I.5.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Wells, seconded by Mrs. Johnson. Council, please vote. Mrs. Hoffman? I think I heard a yes in there.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Holston?
Yes. Yeah.
Who else?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Outling?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hightower?
Yes.
And that passes 8-0. Mr. Holston, do you need to recuse from I.8 being on the
Yes.
board?
On I8, because of my status as vice chair, member of the executive committee and the finance committee, I asked to recuse myself from
Of the
I8.
Greensboro Housing Coalition?
Move I8.
Well, so we have to
well-
recuse Mr. Holston first. So,
Okay.
So
You
moved.
want to recuse
I'll
me?
vote to recuse.
moved by Mrs. Johnson,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Hightower. Mrs. Hoffman?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson? Mr. Outling?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hightower?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 7-0. Now we need
Now
a
move item I8.
moved by Mrs. Johnson,
Second.
seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Council, please vote. Mrs. Hoffman?
Yes.
Dr. Wells? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Outling?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hightower?
Yes.
And that passes 7-0. Now we move on to items, let's see. I.6 and I.7. I.6 is a resolution to contract with Family Service of the Piedmont to provide home buyer education and housing counseling for Housing Connect GSO program in the amount of $200,000. And item 1.7, I.7, resolution to contract with Family Service of the Piedmont for home buyer program administration services for the Housing Connect GSO program in the amount of $200,000.
So Madam Mayor, I move to deny I-6, the staff recommendation of accepting this service. I believe there was some flaws in the process
I second.
and process was circumvented in various ways, and there are some underlying concerns here. And so I move, to deny
Second.
I-6 and I-7 as well.
Okay. Any comments? Okay, so
I'd be interested to hear if Councilman Hightower is willing to expand on that, some of the deficiencies and underlying flaws. It might be helpful in my coming to a position on the item.
One of my primary concerns is that the letter of award went out prior to the council accepting or denying this contract. And I've never known that to occur in the past, that a letter of award goes out to a vendor saying you received it, and yet it's a council item action. So I'm very concerned that the process was circumvented in that regard. And I think that's a flaw that we need to address.
Mr. Outling?
Yeah, sure, if that's all, yeah. I don't know if staff would like to address that point.
So there was a letter of award that went out to Family Services of the Piedmont, and it was an anticipatory, we're looking forward to working with you, is basically how it was worded. The facts of that situation are that this particular letter was one that had been used by the department for some time, and it was not a document that I was familiar with, nor did I know that it had gone out. So as soon as that was brought to my attention, we've gone back and revamped what that notification letter reads to indicate that your item is being brought to city council. So that was a departmental error, but one that was not known. And as soon as we were made aware of that, we've corrected that issue.
Director Kennedy, a quick question, if I may. Was Family Service of the Piedmont the only organization that received that letter? Or was it just a generic letter for all?
My understanding when I approached staff to inquire of the status of the letter is it was a standard form that had been used for some time by the department. It goes to whichever organization staff is making the recommendation for. So it's assumed typically these are not matters that are very contentious. And so it was just something that had been used departmentally, but we've made that correction that it now indicates that your item is being brought to city council for decision.
Thank you.
Mr. Outling, then Mrs. Stone.
Does the award letter affect the scoring or the applications?
No, that's sent at the completion of the staff recommendation portion, once scoring has been finalized.
Okay, so irrespective of the timing of the letter being sent, that doesn't have an impact on staff's recommendation?
No, it has nothing to do with the process.
Mrs. Thurm?
Well, I was just going to follow up on Councilman Outling's comments that I understand and I agree with you on the concern of the timing of that and the error of sending something out that we're voting on prior to the vote. However, that doesn't impact the quality or the RFP that was scored or the quality of the analysis that went into it. And therefore, I really don't see a reason not to support the staff on their recommendation. I think quite a bit of time was spent on this and invested in this. When I followed up with staff to inquire why exactly items were scored the way they were and what the impact of that was, I was very satisfied that it was scored accurately from their viewpoint. And I trust the staff to do their job, just as we trusted the staff and the committee to do their job on the transit RFP. I view this like we do in multiple RFPs that go out. And we ask professional staff to do the analysis that, quite frankly, I don't have all the information and all the skills and all the knowledge, especially when it comes to federal government and keeping up with the records, et cetera, that the staff has. And, you know, and as far as I'm concerned, yes, that process was flawed, but that does not change the results of the RFP and the results of the analysis that went into it. So I will support the items on the agenda. If we're voting to not accept it, then I will be opposed to that.
Mrs. Hoffman, and then I have a comment.
I too will vote to support the staff recommendation here. Apparently 3 organizations responded to the RFP. Clearly, the scoring indicated 1, 2, and 3. These organizations then had to come back and make a second presentation, and the scoring didn't change. So I will be supporting staff recommendation on this agenda item tonight.
So, you know, I think this is a very difficult decision, because we're talking about 2 really quality organizations. When this first came on the agenda in December, I had questions about it because I work very closely. Some of us on council work closer than others when it comes to housing and with the housing providers. And quite frankly, I was shocked at the ranking, knowing firsthand the amount of work that goes into both of those, the counseling and the down payment assistance. And the down payment assistance is something that only one of those organizations has done. And quite frankly, I'm not willing to switch horses midstream right now because they are an unqualified success. Prior to them taking over the program, there were 12 down payment assistance grants that came out of the city. Now there are over 900 in 3 years. And that takes into consideration the low housing inventory that we have and rising prices and COVID. And I think that they have done an outstanding job. After the tornado, Greensboro Housing Consultants came up with, along with city staff. City staff is very integral in all of this. It's not just Greensboro Housing Consultants, but it was to change our renters to homeowners. And it was the 100 home initiative. And we have just absolutely knocked that out of the park. Being a realtor, I know how closely that Housing Consultants Group works with the real estate community. And just 2 weeks ago, she had a Zoom meeting for training people, and there were over 114 people on it, some lenders and some realtors. And I think she does an amazing outreach. She actually exceeds what the contract originally said, that she's doing more trainings than was originally asked for. So I really don't understand the scoring because I know what I know. And it's kind of the way I felt with United Healthcare when we had to reject staff's recommendation and keep United Healthcare. There have been other times when we have changed our minds or actually thrown out all bids. So this is not something that I think we're doing blithely. It's something that, you know, there was a lot of research and knowledge, and, you know, it's tough. We have a lot of momentum right now. We know that we want to get people in housing. I don't know why we would switch the supplier at this point.
And so, Madam Mayor, can I speak to Ms. Thurm's comment?
Well, yeah, but I was
whenever you finished, please.
You know, and I think that there were some basic misunderstandings when there was some, and having, I know 5 of us watched some of the oral presentations, we observed them. And it seemed to me that there was just a misunderstanding of what all of the projects were. Not everybody on that panel was from neighborhood development. And, you know, there are a lot of different initials being thrown around. And I think that there was a misunderstanding on the capability of what the organizations were talking about. So I feel really firm that we should take a look at this again and include what we've talked about. I know Michelle is already working on it as far as including workforce housing, which would include city employees, similar to the employees who spoke here earlier today, and make sure that when we do the take-home car policy, that there are police officers living in our neighborhoods so they can take them home, and fire department. And we were going to also work with the school system, which would be another benefit to our teachers. So I think that this is a good opportunity for us to just pause and take a more comprehensive look at the program.
Absolutely. But let me say this too, to Ms. Thurm's comment. You're absolutely right. Staff recommended the transit contract. Yes, they did, and we took it. But there's something called experience. You can have a positive experience. You can have a negative experience. Transit had a negative experience, and therefore it was time to make a change. Staff saw that. But we have had positive experiences in this housing process, down payment assistance. It has impacted East Greensboro to the tune of 68% of new homeowners, bringing generational wealth to this community. And when you see positive experiences, you have to capitalize on that and build on that. And that's important. It's important as we talk about abandoned houses, trying to get them back in circulation so people can buy them. It's important to leave your child something when you're passed on to another life. That's important. So this has been a positive experience. When the tornado hit us in 2018, we didn't know how we were going to recover. And it was a positive recovery experience that made people feel like their community was going to still continue to thrive. So you have to look at that and evaluate that. And you have to see also who's there and who's not there, who's missing, and who is there, who's present, who's actively a part of something. And I'm just not willing to sacrifice that positive experience for my community, to be very honest. So the process was very concerning because I think we circumvented the process in such a manner that it created this problem. And I would like to see us to redo this again and look at this. Maybe take the pause, relook at everything and reevaluate it. I think also with transit, the selection committee was important. It was people who understood transit. Same thing needs to happen perhaps in this regard, to really understand the dynamic of what you're trying to accomplish.
It is
So
important.
I am still a no. I've still made the motion to deny.
I just want to say, I think it's important to say that you're right. It does matter that you have experts evaluating the process. And because I will always stand behind the work of my staff, it's important to know that this evaluation team was made up of a CPA who's with the Neighborhood Development Department who oversees this grant. It was made up of a member of the Neighborhood Development Department who used to underwrite these loans for the city. And it was made up of our federal compliance officer and then a member of the MWBE staff. So to that end, just in defense of my staff, they are experts in this field.
Mr. Outling, then Mr. Holston.
I certainly agree that if there are defects with a request for proposal, the council should evaluate that, potentially reject it, if there's an issue there. And so kind of my follow-up questions are about the RFP, which isn't included with the agenda materials. Ms. Kennedy, how long has the city been offering or providing the services that are the subject of these contracts?
For the combined contracts, we've been providing both services since 2018. At one point, there was just down payment assistance and not the loan underwriting portion of it, but they've been combined since 2018. And the reason we had to put this RFP back out for bid was because we were out of compliance with rebidding regulations. So it is something we have to do. So that was the reason that there was a renewal RFP.
Okay, so for this particular RFP now, how does it compare to the RFPs previous?
This RFP looks exactly the same or with minor changes that have to do with programmatic changes since 2018. Except for that, it looks the same as the RFP from 2018.
Okay, so before the most recent RFP was issued, so on the prior contract where there was a previous RFP that was identical, were any issues raised about that RFP?
Not to my knowledge.
Before this contract was, I guess, preliminarily awarded to one of the three applicants, were any issues raised with the RFP before that time?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
So I'm not sure what you mean raised with RFP, because I know that when we read the award and looked at the RFPs, there are some of us who actually read all three RFPs, that there was concern. And I believe the first RFP was the very first.
Respectfully,
That
I was just asking Ms. Kennedy, and if I could finish out my questions of
I
her,
thought you
and then-
had.
Yeah. Ms. Kennedy, what defects do you perceive in the RFP that doesn't capture kind of the work that your department is doing in this regard?
In the RFP from this year?
Yeah.
So this is, in all fairness, this is an RFP that I inherited. It was already in process when I came on board. I would have likely, if I were producing this RFP for the first time, have included a public service component. Outside that, the standard parameters of the RFP have no deficiencies.
Okay.
We could enhance it, but on its face, it's appropriate.
And certainly you're, certainly an expert on this topic. To what extent is that a material significant defect or area that you would like to see improvement such that you would perhaps otherwise suggest that the council not accept staff's recommendation? I'm trying to understand kind of your statement that it's an area that you would like to see differently, but the recommendation is for staff for us to accept staff's recommendation. So I'm trying to balance those.
As it relates to the way the RFP was written and presented in the contents of the RFP, there are no deficiencies in that process.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Mr. Holston?
Very quick question for Mr. City Attorney, relative to the preliminary award letter. Is council bound by that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Let me say that when, I didn't really want to get in the weeds, but when we looked at the RFPs, there was a question in the housing consultants group. It was actually said in the write-up that they only worked with one lender, and that the RFP said that you had to work with more than one lender. And they actually worked with 6 lenders. And that, I think, is a big problem, that the evaluation committee seemed to think they were working with one. The one bank that they were working with, Pinnacle, I believe, has their own down payment assistance program. And there were times that this group, Housing Consultants Group, was actually able to leverage both, so that down payment assistance could come from the city and you could also get some from Pinnacle. And that was something that that was unique to Greensboro Housing Consultants, that they had that relationship with Pinnacle that could really benefit our down payment assistance as well. There were other items where it said that they were not providing any one-on-one consultation, and that was just wrong.
Right.
So when you looked at the grading criteria, it looked like there were a lot of things that were missed. And I could go on, because I did send a memo of my concerns on what I saw. So I do think that the process was flawed, and I think it would be good to start over and include that workforce housing when they say that housing consultant groups was just working with one lender, when clearly that isn't true.
That isn't.
It also, Housing Consultants Group helped us rewrite how we were doing down payment assistance after, I think it was after the tornado. And there was they basically said that she had misrepresented it, that she didn't revamp it, she revised it with city staff. And so I don't want to get into the weeds on this stuff, but when you're asking about why I would want to reject something, I think because there is an issue with the process and the way it was graded. And I don't think it reflects the quality of the applications.
Yeah.
Dr. Wells?
I don't have a lot to say about it, except when I listened to, we listened to the interview, on Zoom. And I thought about the difference in experience and presentation. The presentation was done very well, I thought. And all of the slide deck and all of that was good. But the other person talked from experience. Activities are all right, but it's results you want. When they've done 900 houses, when they started with a goal of 100, and they've done 900. So I think that was something that caused me to have a pause.
One of the things, are you done? I'm sorry. One of the things, and I agree with a lot of what the mayor said, but one of the things that's important for us to remember, whether we have great organization, this is a great organization, doesn't have to do with that. Consistency is the issue. And we need to be consistently consistent. If we have rejected others because they have not followed the directions and protocol, then we ought to do it across the board. And then nobody can say, well, they were biased. And we've gotten that before. So we need to be consistent.
Mr. Holston?
Yes, relative to the thought of the staff recommendation, many of us here on council have heard staff present, the planning staff, for instance. I, as serving on the previous Planning and Zoning Commission and also the Board of Adjustment, staff comes in with staff recommendations, and there are times that we accept those recommendations, then there are times that we do not accept those recommendations based upon the information that we have in front of us. And I think this is one of those situations that we listen to the staff recommendation and we make the very best decision that we can make as council, as the stewards of. Mr. City Attorney has shared that the preliminary award letter isn't binding, and so therefore it is incumbent upon us as the stewards in the roles that we are in council to make the very best decision that we can. And I believe that that's what we're doing now. And this discussion is great. Staff is great. We just have to make the very best decision that we possibly can at this time with the information we have.
Right. Call the question.
So we do have a motion on the floor to deny. Council, so yes would be to deny. And this is for the I.6.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoffman?
No.
Mr. Holston? Yes. Dr. Wells? Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
I am a yes. Mr. Outling?
No.
Mrs. Thurm?
No.
And Mrs. Hightower?
Yes.
So to deny passes 5-3. And now we have item number I.7.
Six.
Move
That
to
was
It was
six.
six.
That was six.
It passed
We
six.
got
Oh,
seven.
sorry. Yes. No, there were three no's.
No, Justin, didn't you say yes? Oh,
So,
I beg your pardon.
Okay.
Okay, you're right. I beg your pardon.
thank you.
I thought I heard him say something else.
Item I.7.
Move to deny.
Okay, so that was moved by Mrs. Hightower, seconded by Dr. Wells. Mrs. Hoffman?
Yes.
So this is to deny?
I'm sorry, this is to deny?
Yes.
So this is to deny the awarding of the contract, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Denied.
That is correct.
Then I'm voting no, of course. Sorry.
Okay, Mr. Holston?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
I am a yes. Mr. Outling?
No.
Mrs. Thurm?
No.
And Mrs. Hightower?
Yes.
That passes 5-3. So that is the end of our written agenda. I do want to take a couple minutes to recognize Mrs. Sowell. She's had two big things happen, and one was her doctorate, which was real exciting. And of course, there was an announcement, I believe it was yesterday, regarding your new position as county manager in Durham. And we really wish you the best. We work very closely with Durham, so I know that our paths will cross a lot, especially on the county level. And in Durham, most of the county is the city. So I know that we'll have a lot of things to continue talking about. And so we're really happy for you on this great move, but we're sad for ourselves that that you're leaving us, but you're not going that far.
I just want to thank you for all you've done and your follow-up and your getting back with people very quickly, and your professionalism and your brilliance. I wish you well. I wish you the best. God bless you.
Thank you.
And Director Sowell, I want to say it's only been a short time for me with you, but I've appreciated your experience, but also your passion for everything that you touched, everything that you've done here. And I know that the Durham County is going to be the beneficiary of that, and we're going to miss you.
Thank you for all you've done for us. We will miss you, but wish you the best. We know you do a good job. God bless you.
Mrs. Thurm?
I just want to thank you as well and wish you the best, Dr. Soul. You know, I really appreciate the fact that you're always willing to step up, that you'll go and sit with me in people's living rooms to work on problems and solutions to their problems and brainstorm. And I appreciate all that you've done for Greensboro, for the citizens of Greensboro, and for me. So thank you, and I wish you all the best.
So congratulations, Dr. Sowell. I hope I know you'll do well in Durham. I'm not worried about that. Going to DC, Durham County. We'll see you down the road. It's not goodbye, it's just see you later. And Durham, they'll do well with you down there. So congratulations. We'll miss you.
So congratulations, and we'll look forward. We'll be watching you in the newspapers, and I know that you'll be rooting for us too. So that's good when we can expand our relationships like that. Boards and commissions, Mrs. Hoffman?
I have none. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Holston?
I have none tonight.
Dr. Wells?
None
Mrs.
tonight.
John? I have none. Mr. Outling?
None this evening.
Mrs. Thurm?
I have none this evening, but I do want to let folks that may be watching know that District 5 has an opening in the community sustainability, and I am looking for folks to fill that slot. So if there's anybody out there from District 5, give me a call. Send in an interest form. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hightower, boards and commissions?
Yes, I have two. First, I want to say congratulations to my good friend, Frankie Jones, who is now going to fill the seat of my wonderful departed friend, Commissioner Carolyn Coleman. And so he has resigned from the planning and zoning. And so I would like to appoint Erica Glass, attorney Erica Glass, to that seat.
And is she already in the database?
She's already in the database.
Okay.
She was in the database.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 8-0.
And then I'd like to appoint Patricia, and I'm gonna try to get it right, Wesnicki, that's it. I had to spell it out, but Patricia, who lives over in Glenwood, to participatory budgeting. to replace Alan Jones, who had not been attended, and she's excited about that. So, thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Council comments? Mrs. Mayor Pro Tem?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I did. I spoke for Black History Month Sunday and enjoyed the young people, especially that were there. I used to get asked to speak 15 times, but I guess with COVID, it cut down a whole lot, but it was an enjoyable occasion. And the mayor and Dr. Wells and I went to a wonderful 80th birthday. Did we talk about that last time? Celebration for Nicholas Bright, who has given so much to the city in the way of designing programs for young people to improve their lives. And so we enjoyed that very much. The mayor spoke beautifully and I did okay. And
It's never that way.
And Goldie did great.
Yeah.
So we enjoyed being there with him and celebrating his 80th birthday. He's a great citizen of Greensboro.
Well, I think one of the most fun part of that was when the kids that he had mentored, who are now in their 50s, came back and did
Danced and did, those step shows.
and after all these years could still do it. They were getting a little slow there at the end, but that was because they said a few decades had
But they
passed.
didn't end up in intensive care, but they are fine.
It was really great to see the love and admiration that was there. Mr. Holston?
Nothing tonight.
Okay, Mrs.
You been a
Hightower?
good boy?
Yeah, I have a couple of concerns. One is a concern, a few months ago, and I know everybody's excited about Toyota. I get it. But in what we did a few months ago, we approved a design build process. However, there is no minority participation, and I need to look into that because there's no need to celebrate something that we think is going to help people, and it doesn't help the very people we're talking about helping into improving their lives. And so while we can't control the Randolph County side, we certainly can control our side. And I know this is the water line project initially. This is building the tower. So I really would like for us to do a little bit more and dig into that a little bit more, because I've heard from some who said they also got put off of the project because they claimed they didn't have experience, yet they have experience and they've done other projects. So I really would like for us to look a little bit more closely at that, so we can make sure that all people have opportunity, but particularly the minorities who typically aren't at the table. And so I'd like to see where we can get with that. I also have asked for, in the past, a pay study. And I talked about that pay study back when field ops and water resources came before. And I asked those questions around how we looked at that. And I was told, yeah, we have. But apparently listening tonight, I think we need to do a little bit more looking at that and to become more equitable in pay. Let's be honest, people come to work to get paid. And the people that do the dirty work, I mean, all work is, important that our city does. But I heard the passion in the gentleman tonight who talked about the routes and the routes they have to cover. And we keep annexing property in the city, which is a great thing. But if we're stretching the rubber band to the point that they're not being able to pick up all the cans, then I think we're doing a disservice to those we're annexing and to those we expect to do the services, especially when the pay is not equitable. So really would like for us to get further details on that and then let's invest in the field ops department we need to put some money in that area and in that department. So I really would like for us to do that. And maybe come back at the retreat and talk about that. And see where we are. We have to commit to invest in certain areas. So I really would like us to do that. And couple that too with whatever I think the mayor mentioned earlier about COVID relief. I know that one municipality took some of their ARP money and maybe gave like a little stipend to all their employees, $500 or something like that. Not a lot, but it's a thank you. And so I would like for us to look at that. And I think I talked to Mr. Davis about it once before. What did that look like? What does that cost? And I don't think it was a lot, so I would like for us to really consider that. And let's see how we can do that for our employees. So, thank you.
Dr. Wells?
I had a chance on last Tuesday, it was to go over to Printworks Mills, and they dedicated their club room to the memory of Josephine Boyd Bradley. And she was the first African-American student to attend then Greensboro High School. It's now Grimsley High School. So that was a nice experience. Her daughter was there, and the clubhouse has a nice mural on the wall with her picture. I've read some of the ordeal of going through being the only Black person in the high school. She left Dudley in 10th grade, but she was very smart and was able to end being the top 10% of her class. So she went on to become an educator. And then on Thursday, I want to invite all of you who are in Northeast Greensboro to come to the Concerned Citizens meeting. It will be a virtual meeting. You can find the Zoom meeting on the Facebook page, on my Facebook page, both of them. So we'd like for all of you to come to hear things that are going on in the community, to voice your concerns, and we will be a better community if we as neighbors get together and share and learn from each other.
Thank you. Mr. Otley?
Yes, thank you. Two items this evening. First and foremost, a heartfelt congratulations to Ms. Sowell on her appointment as the next county manager for Durham County. Certainly Greensboro's loss is Durham County's gain, but we're all excited that you're still staying in North Carolina. I have been remarkably impressed by your time as an assistant city manager. A couple of things really stand out that I think are exceptional. First, your willingness to provide information and share with everyone, whether it's a council member, whether it's a member of the public, irrespective of ways in which that information might be received or characterized. It's really something I think is valuable in government, that transparency and sharing information. And you did that superbly and very consistently. Second, you are a real problem solver. And certainly the council and the city does a lot of things that are apparent to the public at meetings such as this one. But by way of example, I remember one situation in which a very large organization was very concerned about whether or not it would be able to be in a building because of permitting that was happening in that building. And you're talking about, gosh, probably hundreds of millions of dollars that they were concerned about losing. And you and your team were organized, prepared, making sure that the processes were such that everything that should operate well, in fact, operated well, and also providing that reassurance to that organization, which is something that the public may not ever get a preview or a view into, but it's really significant, and it leaves a tremendous legacy of your work. And so congratulations to you, and thanks for your contribution to the city. Second, I would be interested for an update on American Rescue Plan recommendations. It was my understanding that the council would get recommendations at the end of February. And so I'm curious as to what the timeline might be for recommendations from staff, as obviously that affects when the city might make expenditures. And if there's no update that could be provided now, if it could be provided subsequent to this meeting, but soon, that would be welcome.
Councilmember Ali, I'll try to speak to that. Staff has completed its preliminary reviews. We did extend the process towards the very end of the month, just to help with the sheer number of recommendations. So I'm working with the manager now to go through that first cut, and we'll be sharing it with you, I know, in early March.
Great, thank you much.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Thank you very much, Mayor. I too would really like to extend my best wishes and congratulations to Mrs. Soundwell on her appointment as the next county manager in Durham. I have particularly enjoyed working with you, and two things stand out. I think you always had a sense of urgency when it came to getting things done. And then secondly, I felt that you were really always very creative in terms of how we could accomplish something. Sometimes you really just have to figure out a way to get good things done. And I felt that you were always able to do that with the areas of the city that you had responsibility for. And then secondly, we had our monthly ABC board meeting last week and really looked at our financials for the first half of the year. And really just, I did a quick calculation. And I think probably if sales stay on track for the remainder of this fiscal year, the contribution that the ABC board will make to the city of Greensboro's general fund will be somewhere between $8 and $9 million. That's a significant contribution to the city of Greensboro, and I would really like for us to keep that in mind as we continue to hear discussions about privatization, and there are many reasons I think to object to privatization. One of them being the significant financial contribution of this board and this business to the city of Greensboro.
Thank you. And I also want to thank you for your service on that board. You have really been engaged and kept us on top of things for a long time as our liaison to the ABC board. Mrs. Thurm?
Yes, just a couple of things. For those that may have missed it today, we had a great announcement about Procter & Gamble, who decided to expand their presence in Greensboro with over $100 million investment, 46 jobs. And I think the average wage was $64,000. It's exciting that they're expanding here. They've been here, it seems like forever, but they are a great corporate citizen, and we're very excited that they chose to expand in Greensboro.
Only place that makes Pepto-Bismol in the world.
That's right. We make the Pepto-Bismol for the world. There you go. That's quite the statement.
Yeah.
The other thing is I just want to acknowledge the what's going on in Ukraine and the tragedies there, and just say that I was pleased that Greensboro had an outpouring of support for Ukraine this weekend. Unfortunately, because of my limitations physically, I wasn't able to participate, but my heart was with those folks. And as a daughter of or granddaughter of first generation immigrants leaving the land that you grew up with and the language that you speak, and everything about that situation is just horrendous. And I wish for peace.
Well said. Well said. That's kind of a hard act to follow, but I'm going to give it a shot. I know that Goldie and Isa and Isa, who's kind of the 10th council person at times, were at Mother Standing Against Gun Violence that was in the plaza on Saturday. And it was a It was a really nice rally. There were many people from our police department who were there and people from the community, really to talk about solutions to the violence in our community and the homicides. Today, Mr. Outling and I were at the United Way. It was their 100th birthday, and they really celebrate. Oh, I'm sorry, city manager was there as well. And they really celebrated in style. And at the end, we planted a tree that will hopefully be there in another 100 years. Obviously, we won't get to see it. And I think that's what they say is the definition of an optimist, is that you plant a tree and you just know that it's going to grow.
Maybe you won't, Mayor. Maybe you won't. We're not,
Okay.
I ain't going nowhere.
I thought you and I were going up
I
to
don't
the
wanna
rest
see
home
it.
together. So that was good. Tammy mentioned the Procter & Gamble announcement, and that comes on the heels of last week's RPM announcement, which was another 53 jobs and $23 million. So that's just about 100 jobs and 150 million in investment in 2 weeks. And we continue to get announcements like this where the 50 jobs don't sound like a lot lately, but they are really, really the backbone of our community. And Procter & Gamble is on Swing Road, and so their motto is swinging into the future, I think is what they said. And also last week, GPD graduated a class. 28 graduated. I think it started with 40, maybe 38 showed up, but we graduated 28, and it was a good diverse class and looked like they had a lot of camaraderie. We look forward to them hitting the streets once all of their training is complete. So it was good. And there was also a promotion service later on that day. So it was a good day for GPD. And I know that the police chief and the sheriff hosted a law enforcement day yesterday, and that was well received. There were Black law enforcement officers from throughout the state, and we had a great lunch at Lux. So there are a lot of good things going on. Those are just a few that I can think of offhand. Mr. City Manager?
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. So I also want to say thank you to Dr. Manager Kim Sowell. It's a pleasure, definitely working with you. I'm glad she gave me, at least by the time she's done, 45 days. At least, but we've worked well together and I've enjoyed every moment of it. So we're behind you and we'll continue to make sure that we champion you on the sidelines. So over the next week, we have 2 more listening sessions. I think we have one in District 4 on March 9, and then we have another one on March 10 in District 5. And so we want to encourage you to continue to participate and also encourage those who have not been participating to show up. But we've been getting a fairly decent attendance for these evening meetings. So thank you very much for getting the word out. The community survey, I believe, should start soon. And so that would dig deep into especially reaching out to those who might not have been able to show up at this meeting. So at the end of the day, we'll have really good information to share with all of you when we pull all this together. That's it from me, and thank you very much for a good meeting tonight.
Mr. City Attorney?
I'll join the chorus and say good luck to Dr. Saul. It's been good work.
Yes.
But I have nothing else. Thank you.
Great. I get moved by Mrs. Johnson, seconded by Dr. Wells. Did you need? Mr. Deputy City Manager, any comments?
I'm never going to do this again, but I will just say really quickly, Kim, we love you and you are the heart of this team and we appreciate you so much. I won't get choked up, but I'm going to miss you. You're a good friend, you're a good teammate, and you've had a huge impact on this community. So best of luck.
So before I get corrected again, Mr. Larry Davis, do you have?
Oh, this is a unique pleasure to be able to speak at this point in the meeting. And like Chris, this might be the first and last time I do it, but Kim, you are a treasure. And I'm glad you're staying in the public administration family. I know you'll always be a phone call, a text away. You're the best. Thank you for everything.
And his cousin Trey Davis.
I want to say thank you. Kim has been so amazing. I'm going to miss her presence so much. She's been a mentor, a friend, a big sister, and all those things. And I've learned so much from working with her. It's going to be amazing to see what you're going to do in Durham. My hometown is very close to there. So I am really excited I got a lot of family in that area. So this is going to be amazing. Thank you so much. We love you.
And Madam Clerk, I don't want to leave you out. You're right about it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will definitely get choked up because Kim knows how much she means to me and the friendship that we've had for several years. And she has been a huge mentor for me. And I have much appreciated the time and the energy that she has put into not just our friendship, but in her guidance that she has offered and for what she has put into this city. You will definitely be missed.
Tebony, Tori, I know that you're not used to public speaking, but.
We can use this opportunity in tandem.
Because I'm going to cry.
But we just want to say how much we appreciate you as a woman, as a mentor, as a leader, and as a guide. Every morning we knew that you were going to bring it with your color coordinated outfits.
Could not wait for it.
And that strut of confidence. And we were both proud to know that we were in the same office with you. So we know that those blessings are going to extend to Durham and that nothing but goodness will come to you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you.
I just want you to know that I love you and I look up to you and I will continue to bug you. So don't forget to leave your email, but we love you.
So that's tough to follow up. So Kim, you know that you're in all our prayers. We know you will be back for the greatest homecoming on earth. So we know that we'll see you then. And I'm sure that we will see you before that. With that, I believe that Mrs. Johnson made a motion to adjourn. Second by Dr. Wells. All in favor, say aye. Aye.